On today's show,
the Warriors stay alive with a huge road victory, but should Kevin Durant have played?
we check the polls to hear your take on how the Warriors won and if Nick Nurse shouldn't have called a timeout.
And we share our favourite moment from the Game 5 experience in Toronto.
It's Tuesday, June 11th. The starter starts now. Welcome to the starters presented by Jack Daniels, Old Number 7 and Tennessee Honey. I'm Taz Mellis. Alongside me, it's the Aussie Lee Ellis. Where's everybody else? Well, Trey Kirby's in Oakland. We will talk to him tomorrow. And J.E. Skeets is up in Toronto. We will talk to him a little bit later.
What, he didn't want to come back after the loss? He just stayed there?
He's in Jurassic Park, I guess.
Oh, okay. Right, lining up.
He's lining up for potential Game 7. We'll talk to him a little later on. Yeah, we were there. Hopefully you caught our live show before we took in Game 5, and that's where we have to start. We'll start with a little true or false Kevin Durant edition to get into that very eventful Game 5. Because KD, he made his return after a month due to that calf strain. Early in the second quarter, he injured that same area, but this time it appeared to be far more serious because it's his Achilles. Here's Bob Myers addressing it after the game.
I don't believe there's anybody to blame, but I understand this world. And if you have to, you can blame me. I run our basketball operations department.
Bob Myers, obviously very emotional after the game. So, Lee, what do you think? True or false? No one's to blame for the Kevin Durant injury.
I think it's true.
Really?
I think first off, this was obviously an awful moment in the game. Kevin Durant just came back. He was playing really well, knocking down shots. But this sort of a decision is never one person's decision, and that's what Bob Myers and the Warriors alluded to afterwards. Like, it was a collaborative agreement between Kevin, the medical staff, Bob, and other front office people there within the Warriors organization. I think given the circumstances of what the situation was, down 3-1 in the finals, perhaps he wouldn't have played if this was any other game, but they needed their best players out on the court, and they decided that if Kevin felt good and the medical staff had cleared him enough to go out there and play, then he went out there and played. Anyone can get injured at any time. Anyone can rupture their Achilles if that's what happened at any time. And perhaps, as I say, maybe he wouldn't have played if this was any other game, but that was the decision they made, and then they have to live with that.
Anyone can get injured at any time, but it's not a coincidence that it's the exact same area. Obviously, is a sensitive area, and it sure seemed like he came back too soon. If there's blame to be put anywhere in our very uneducated opinion, in my uneducated opinion, it's the doctors. As soon as you clear him, of course they're going to play him. It really is the doctor's decision, and then it's up in the air as to what happens. And the other blame could be put on Steve Kerr if he was told not to play him as much as he did, because he played 12 of the first 14 minutes of the game, and we heard reports before the game that he was going to play in spurts. Yeah. And that didn't happen, but it's unlikely Steve Kerr was told that, because you would assume he would follow guidelines. But if there's any blame to be placed, you have to assume it's the doctors. It's no coincidence that's where he got hurt.
But up until that point, he was moving without any problems. You wouldn't have known he had a significant injury. Now, yes, of course, if you're coming off an injury, you are a chance to re-injure that thing. And what he did at this moment was basically just laid on a move, a very, a simple move that it kind of popped at that one moment. But prior to that, he didn't seem to be in any way struggling with his movement on the court, getting lift on his shots. I mean, he was shooting the ball incredibly well. I think it's unfortunately just one of those things that happen, and I don't think anyone feels great about it this morning within the Warriors organization. If someone knew that he was going to be at a high risk to re-injure this and they chose not to speak up, then that person certainly is to blame, but otherwise I don't think any one particular person takes more responsibility than the other in this moment.
Kevin Durant obviously put on a great show in those 12 minutes he was out there. We showed you the numbers, the impact he had on his team, the way he opened it up for Steph, and the way they rallied around him after he went down. It was cool to see him sort of redeem himself after what's been an unfair news cycle. Basically a month of people questioning whether or not he cares, which is pretty ridiculous and pretty bogus. And the fact that every single show just needs to have a talking head yell something. What's been yelled about Kevin Durant this past month is that he doesn't care. This guy has nothing left to prove in basketball whatsoever. As an MVP, two-time finals MVP, he could have coasted into the summer. He could have chilled out, got paid in the offseason. But he obviously really, really cares about his teammates. And he said that on Instagram after the game. Dub Nation going to be loud as bleep for Game 6. I'm hurting deep in the soul right now. I can't lie, but seeing my brothers get this win was like taking a shot at tequila.
Yeah.
I got new life.
And you know as well, players want to get out there and play. No player in the final says, you know what, I'm happy to sit on the sides. This is what they put their whole life into, is to getting a chance to play in the finals. Now, he's been there before, he's won it, but it doesn't change the fact that you want to get out there and try to compete, especially when your team is in a hole like that. So maybe Kevin Durant wasn't feeling 100%, but he was like, you know what, I'm just going to get out there for my guys and be a part of this. And perhaps so maybe he brought himself back a little bit too early as well. But you just can't blame a guy for wanting to be a part of it. You know, especially when they were down 3-1 on the road. This was an absolute must-win game for that team. So, you know, the competitive instincts of these guys always gives them a little bit of an extra push.
Someone we can blame, Lee, is our Canadian brethren, because unfortunately when Kevin Durant went down, they did a bit of cheering. Now, it was quite the scene because he went down and the players, Raptors players, tried to hush the crowd. Would you stop it? Even the PA announcer had to hush them. They turned that into a KD, KD chant as he did leave the arena. But true or false, Toronto fans' reaction was shameful.
Initially, yes, it was, because people were cheering and clapping. But I will say this, I think most fans thought it was just a turnover. He lost possession of the ball and he might have just tweaked it rather than, they didn't realise the severity of the injury straight away. Once they did, then pretty quickly those sort of that jeering turned into supportive chants and like, okay, we didn't, you know, we weren't really cheering for the injury because we didn't know it was that significant. So, you know, in the heat of the moment, in the finals, you're at home, the fans are emotional as well. You sort of thought, oh yeah, the guy just slipped over and he lost possession of the ball. We're going to cheer that because he's an MVP, he's a great player. But once the realization that, okay, he's injured himself again, he went straight to the locker room, there wasn't even any chance for him to come back and continue, then most of the crowd realized, okay, we're not going to start cheering anymore. We understand that something serious has happened here. So, yes, I think initially that was the feeling. We were in the arena there and I heard cheering and I was like, oh, that's a little bit awkward. But then it stopped pretty quickly and turned into chants and people supporting him and clapping him. So I think fans realised their mistake early enough that it's not something that was going to linger throughout the game.
Here's what happened. It started even before the game where they were jeering Kevin Durant. Even in warm-ups, he was taking shots. He was missing. They were booing because they were trying to rattle the other team's best player.
Yeah.
This was a playoff game. Even in the first quarter when he was missing shots, they were all over him. So, yes, they're hanging on every single play because this is the finals.
He didn't give them a lot of missed shots to cheer for.
No, only two. He shut them up in the first quarter. But when he went down, it was a turnover, so they were pumped. I mean, they're cheering every change of possession. So I'll give them that. They were excited. But as soon as he went down, and they saw he went down, they were still cheering. They're fickle. Listen, they're tribal. They wanted their team to win.
Yeah.
It was a little excessive, undoubtedly. They have a fault in it, no doubt.
Yeah.
But they did recover somewhat quickly after the players told them to shut up. But, you know, it's hard for them because literally it was a change of possession.
Yeah.
It's just
and that's the thing.
difficult.
It was a simple move that created the turnover. And again, that's the thing. It sort of looked like, oh, he's lost his footing and he slipped over here. But it was more significant than that. But I think it was good leadership from the Raptors players to send the message to the crowd.
Yeah, it was
hey
great.
Guys, this is not just a normal injury here. Something serious has happened.
Yeah.
And you saw Lowry and Ibaka and other guys going over to Kevin Durant to say, we want to win this championship, but you know, we don't want to see someone get hurt in the process.
All right, next KD topic, because this could affect his future here. This injury may change what Kevin Durant does this summer. He was expected to be the biggest free agent on the market with this injury, but, you know, with this injury, he could pick up his option and stay in the Bay for a year and change his trajectory a bit. So, what do you think? True or false, KD's injury changes the way he looks at his free agency situation?
I think it's false for now. I think until we know the severity of the injury, I don't think anything changes right now. He may miss time going into next season. He may miss the entire season. Until we find out, we just don't know. But Kevin Durant's one of those special players that if he chooses to opt out and become a free agent, I think every single team that has the cap space will throw the max at him regardless because they know what he brings to the table. So in that sense, I don't think it really changes anything. From his own sense, perhaps he wants to stay in Oakland for one more season, or Golden State for one more season, or he wants to sign a long-term deal there for the Warriors. So I don't think it makes a huge difference right now because, as I say, if he's available, the Knicks and the Nets and the Lakers, everyone will try to convince him with a max contract, the max that they can offer to get him to sign there. Because, he's still a young guy, he's still a quality player. Obviously, he's an all-NBA type talent, and teams absolutely want him.
I do think it's false. I do think if it changes his trajectory at all, his teammates just showed how much they love him.
Yeah.
Steph Curry ran into the tunnel with him. He left the floor and sprinted in the middle of an NBA Finals game.
Yeah.
So maybe he says, all right, one more year. It's kind of like the feeling I get with Kawhi and the Raptors. Maybe he signs a short-term deal there.
Yeah.
But as far as other teams go, I totally agree with you. He's 30 years old. The Knicks are still going to throw the max. Hey, there's the Knicks. They'll take Kevin Durant no matter what.
Yeah.
But you got to look at it, I think, from a long-term perspective. A couple of years ago, we considered that Jones fracture in his foot a huge problem.
Yeah,
and we worried.
Threatening, yeah.
Yeah, this is a 7-footer.
Yeah.
He recovered from that. So you got to assume he can recover from this as well and take his time. So I don't think it really changes all that much. All right, we got to continue talking about this Game 5. There was a lot happening with all the momentum going for them. Should Nick Nurse have called that timeout? We'll discuss that after the break. Welcome back. Time for Check the Polls, where we got your opinion on some Game 5 storylines. First one, Raptors were up 6 with 3 minutes to play, but the Splash Brothers continued to hit big threes, and the Raptors simply stopped scoring. So, we asked you, what was the biggest reason for the Warriors' win? The Raptors' late-game collapse, Durant's return, or the Warriors' three-point shooting in an overwhelming favorite? The Warriors' three-point shooting wins this one, 61%.
Yeah, it's right too. I mean, when the Raptors had that 6-point lead, you just felt maybe they would be able to close it out from here because especially for a couple of reasons. Obviously, Kevin Durant was gone by then. DeMarcus Cousins was okay, but he hadn't been the same sort of player we know he can be. So they knew the offense was going to be Steph and Clay, and they're probably going to go for home runs. And they did, and they nailed them, but they'd been nailing them all game. They got off to a great start hitting threes, but when it came winning time, Steph hits a couple, then Clay hits one as well, and the Warriors were just locked in from three-point range last night. I mean, look, we know they can do this. They're one of the best offensive teams we've ever seen. The Raptors just needed them to miss a couple late, and you thought that maybe because they were so hot early on that would happen, but unfortunately it didn't happen.
They quietly had the second most threes ever in an NBA Finals game. and I say quiet because
I know, yeah.
It didn't feel like that crazy.
Like they seemed to hit them consistently in each quarter.
Right.
It wasn't like they went in one quarter where they hit 10.
Yeah,
it was
I agree.
just from the start and the second, the third, and then of course at the end.
But I do think that's part and parcel with Durant coming back, because Durant coming back made this team look so scary in that first quarter. They got so confident. They just got back to how they feel, how great they feel with a third guy out there. And they desperately needed him. And I'm sure the Raptors were frightened watching that and would be frightened if seeing that for a full series.
Yeah.
And that's why the late game collapse, sure, but they just played bad the entire game.
Well, the Raptors' defense has been brilliant this entire playoff run. And the defense wasn't bad, I didn't think, yesterday, but the Warriors hit those shots. You give Steph or Clay a centimetre of room and they can knock those down. And again, that's what they did. And Kevin Durant getting some early as well. You just saw them get into that rhythm. And sometimes if you see him drop in that first quarter, it can carry on to the rest of the game.
And the first quarter, Steph felt so good with 14 points there. And that's thanks to KD.
For sure.
That space that he provided. All right, next topic here. What did we ask you here? Let's check those polls. What some people are calling the turning point. 3:30 left in the fourth. Kawhi hit a jumper to give the Raps their biggest lead of the game at 6. They got to stop, and then Nick Nurse called a timeout with the crowd going bonkers. He called a timeout. It was all downhill from there. So, did Nurse's late timeout kill the Raptors' momentum? You said yes. 71% of you. Lee's laughing.
Well, yeah. I mean, it did because Kawhi was on.
It literally happened, but like they stopped scoring.
Yeah.
But I don't blame it on that.
No, because as we just mentioned as well, Steph and Clay hit dagger three-pointers. They didn't sort of miss after that. But I think the point here is Kawhi went on that run, that 10-0 run, that put the Raptors in front by 2 possessions. And the way that this series has played out, particularly in Game 4, when the Warriors got behind and the Raptors got ahead, the Raptors didn't collapse. They were able to sort of keep on scoring. But then the Raptors offense stagnated and they went cold, and clearly they were going to Kawhi Leonard, but I think at times they got a little bit late into the shot clock, weren't able to get a good shot off earlier into the shot clock, that if you miss, you can maybe get a second chance opportunity or put back. Instead, it was like, give the ball to Kawhi, shot clock went down late, and the Raptors' execution really just left them alone after Kawhi was just on a roll there. And so it's easy to sort of point to that situation and say, Nick Nurse, well, you know what, he called a timeout to kill the momentum. But let's say that gave them a little bit of a break and then they went out and scored. Then everyone would say, well, it was a perfectly called timeout to get their legs back under them and to close out the game.
It was odd, though, because they'd been playing so poorly. They're behind the whole game.
Yeah.
Finally, Kawhi goes on that run.
Yeah.
They're up 6. Their biggest lead, again, of the game. And then, Nick Nurse stops it because the rule is if you keep those timeouts after the 3-minute mark, you lose them. So
Right.
what he did actually was call back-to-back timeouts in the same stoppage. He called 2 timeouts, to get Kawhi his rest because they were playing exactly like that. They were just giving Kawhi the ball.
Yeah.
And they were saying, oh, well, we need this guy rested.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it just reminded Steph and Clay, hey, you guys are great. You should do that. What I'm curious about is it's not like they didn't have timeouts afterwards for the final play. And they didn't call a timeout on the final play, and that play did not work out whatsoever. Kyle Lowry doesn't get space here in the corner because Marc Gasol isn't doing a good job of screening Draymond Green. Draymond Green gets out there for a great block, mind you. And Kawhi made the right play, but why not call a timeout? Because this wasn't a live ball play here.
Yeah.
This was a dead ball situation. You could have called timeout to call a play.
It's the same thing, though, that you hear all the time. Coaches prefer it to get it out there without calling a timeout so the defense doesn't have a chance.
But they were set.
I get that.
Because it wasn't
But at the same time, it's still they don't get to a huddle and say, well, this is what they're probably going to play. Instead, you trust your guys to go out there and maybe get the defense on its back foot, and you got to shut up. My issue with that was the Raptors were down a point, and they waited. They wanted to shoot the ball as the buzzer was going off to win the game. You've got to get a better shot than that with a little bit of time on the clock. You don't have to hit the buzzer beater. You want to be in front and put the pressure on the other team to have to score to win the game.
Well, Lee Ellis, he was pretty vocal there in the media section, even though you're not allowed to be.
Well, look, the emotions get the better of all of us at times, Tassie, you know?
No, I know. I hate being in that media section and not being able to cheer. So, after the break, we're going to go through our favorite moments from our Game 5 experience, including poutine.
My mouth is still on fire from the gravy.
The Starters is presented by Jack Daniel's Old No. 7 and Tennessee Honey.
Welcome back. We continue to discuss Game 5, this time with a little fill-in-the-blank fun. And Skeets joins us via Skype from Toronto. Skeets, you can get us started on this first one. The Warriors' unsung hero in Game 5 was blank.
Yeah, I'll get us started because I'm cheating. I already wrote down my answer in my beautiful penmanship. I'm going DeMarcus Cousins with an exclamation mark because DeMarcus Cousins, in this series outside of Game 2 had been unplayable. He was averaging 5 points per game on 30% shooting over the previous 2 games, but in Game 5 gives them 14 and 6. He had that 6-minute stretch there in the second quarter where he shot 5, he hit a 3, he grabbed 5 rebounds, an assist, a steal, a block. He was contributing on both ends. And Lee, I was sitting beside you, and remember there was a moment when it was Cousins, Clay, and then Cook, McKinney, and Livingston, and that Warriors lineup, because of Cousins, they outplayed the Raptors. They went on a 7-0 run. They were a positive in those minutes, and that was huge. So definitely Cousins as an unsung hero in this one.
Yeah, I think it was important with Cousins that he got a couple of early baskets around the paint, scored them, felt confident, then stepped out and hit that three-pointer. I think you could just see his confidence grew from there. And that, again, that's what Steve Kerr is hoping to get out of Cousins every game. It hasn't been seen throughout the playoffs, but when he gets it, it's very, very valuable to his team. I'm going with Draymond Green's composure. Because in the second quarter, Draymond Green picked up his 3rd foul, which also then led to a tech foul. And what you saw from Draymond is it looked like perhaps the wheels were going to fall off. He started getting emotional. We know that he's talked about how he's trying to stay a little bit calmer and not yell at referees. But this cost him a tech foul, cost his team a point there. And that's the sort of thing, if he picks up another foul, Draymond might have to go to the bench. They're already short-handed. If he goes down, then they're really in trouble. But in the second half, he managed to stay out of foul trouble, played so well and contested and affected that last shot on Kyle Lowry. So I think that was a crucial moment for Draymond. He stayed with it, though, and the Warriors benefited for it in the long run.
As long as he doesn't get another tech, because he'll get suspended if he gets another one for Game 7, I guess. I got Cuz, too, because it's like the Warriors lost one injured player in Kevin Durant and got another one back because they got a healthy DeMarcus Cousins in this one. There's two versions of Cousins in this series. There's a healthy one in Games 2 and Games 5, and then the not-so-good ones in 1, 3, and 4. Makes a huge, huge difference getting their all-star. All right, next topic here. We were all in attendance for game number 5. So your favorite game 5 moment was blank. Skeets, start us off.
Well, I mean, look, this was an insane game. You guys have already done a great job talking about it. But my favorite moment, it was O Canada. It was the national anthem before the game, 20,000 strong, everybody wearing red, taking over and singing this together. I got to stand up here, guys. I don't know how this is going to look on Skype, but I'm standing up.
Yeah.
It was incredible. It was incredible because I've seen this before at other sporting events, especially in Canada, hockey games where everybody sings, but I've never been a part of it. So the camera angle's not good.
No, it's great.
It was beautiful.
No, that's beautiful. It's perfect. I'm still getting goosebumps hearing it. I totally agree with you. I took out my camera and I filmed the entire thing. Now I'm never going to show that video to anyone because I was singing my heart out and I sung it terribly, and I actually didn't film it all that well because I was that into it. Yeah. But it was great. You can hear it right now. It's echoing through our earpieces. It was really, really fun to listen to and to be there for it. And I don't know how the Raptors got out to a bad start after listening to that anthem. I really don't. Lee, what was your favorite moment? Not the Canadian anthem,
The Raptors
probably.
have been bringing back some alumni, and Vince Carter made his return last night and clearly got the biggest chant and the biggest roar from the crowd. We know things didn't end all that well for Vince in Toronto, but everyone's moved on. Time has passed, and everyone did show the respectful appreciation and love that Vince deserved last night. Beautiful moment, really enjoyed it.
Skeets,
that was very cool. Very, very cool. I just wanted to jump in here. Sorry, Taz. My least favorite moment from watching Game 5, outside of Raps fans obviously celebrating Kevin Durant's injury, which was brutal. That was rough. Everybody waving. That was horrible. Least favorite moment, watching a game with Lee Ellis beside me. Lee, up in the press box, you said it there, Taz, freaking out. At one point, Lee Ellis, like he was Drake, was giving me a massage like I was Nick Nurse. Now, yes, I was freaking out like Rain Man, like rocking back and forth and playing, but come on, Lee, you gotta chill out a little bit.
Lee's gonna get us kicked out of our seats. No question about it. Skeets, we'll check in with you tomorrow after the break. A very solid play. VSP time, baby.
Yeah, sorry to do this to you, Tass, but it's this dagger here from Klay Thompson. Yeah, I mean, this ball movement was just perfect. Look at it, fizz around Klay. Little pump fake party on Kawhi. Swish bomb.
Not very solid defense here.
No, but just beautiful from the Warriors. Basically saved their series and their season, and that's what I call a very solid play.
It's great to have it back. Only a couple more, maybe just one more. We will see you tomorrow. Trey and Skeets on our show, 6:30 Eastern. Thanks for joining us.